Welcome to OverTime the podcast, a show dedicated to all things watches, with a special love for micro brands and their affordable range. I'm your host Praka, and some of you might know me as Kinda Average Watches. Join me as we explore new releases, share tips on building your collection, and put in some overtime with hands-on reviews of the latest watches. Whether you're a bit of a pro or you're just getting into the hobby, this podcast will keep you entertained with great stories from the people in the industry, casual conversations, and guest hosts who bring their own unique perspectives. Let's get started. G'day listeners. Today we have a super special episode. We have a guest who has been on the podcast before. I'm guessing it's almost over a year and a half now. And I'm so excited to have him back on the podcast. It is, of course, Peter Sargison from Second Hour Watches. And yeah, super excited to have a chat with him about many things, but mostly about his latest release and iteration of the Second Hour Mandala. Peter, welcome to Overtime the podcast again. How you going?
Hi, Praka. Thanks for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be back on with you. And hello to everyone who's listening. Thanks for having me on.
Great. Thanks, Peter. And, we always do this. And before we start off the episode, we've got to do the customary wrist check. Of course, I can sort of see it here. But for the listeners who can't see it, what have you got in your wrist, mate?
I am wearing a prototype of a watch that I've actually been in development now for 3 years. Okay. And I haven't yet found the right timing to release it because I'm constantly changing and improving things on it. But I can't take it off. There's a couple of colors in the line that I just can't stop wearing because the combination of how they fit so well with just about so many different straps.
Sure.
And they're incredibly comfortable on wrist. So yeah, it's obviously they look nice as well. So that's
Yeah,
nice.
I'm sure they do if it's like any other second hour watch. So, okay, I'm just curious if you could lift it up so I could have a little sneak peek and I'll try and explain it to the listeners. Okay. Yeah. Oh, nice. Very cool.
Yeah,
Very
it's
nice.
based on the same case form as the Saddleberg Mark
Yeah.
II and the Mark I. And it's got a color accent crown, and in general, it's just very slim, very easy on the eyes, and very easy on the wrist. And it just, I'm wearing it with an Epsom level leather strap today, one that I had made for us by one of our watch manufacturing partners. It's just in a nice, almost like an elephant grey, I suppose, and it just matches the dial. Lovely neutral tones. I'm a bit of a grey dial fan.
Yeah.
I think I may have talked to you about this before. I know I've certainly mentioned on an interview recently, I think, where I talked about how much I love grey dials and how not all my customers feel the same way.
Yeah.
So be careful and restrain myself from releasing too many grey dials.
Nothing wrong with a grey dial. I actually love a monotone. It's funny. I think, when you last came on, probably we spoke about colors and different things and probably talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, no matter what, I always seek right back to the grays and the blacks and the whites, just the monochrome. And it works. It works. So
Yes.
fantastic. Thanks for that. And yeah, unfortunately, listeners, I won't be able to show you guys a link or anything, but you're just going to have to visualize it from what Peter just said. So, of course, I'll go to my wrist check, and I am wearing the Second Hour Mandala Mark III in the mint, which was kindly sent over by Peter. So thank you very much for sending this over, and it is stunning. It's hard
all the
to.
restrictions there.
I know. I'm trying to show Peter the watch via the
Good thing I know
video.
what it looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
But how are
And
you enjoying it?
I'm loving it. It's the first mint dial in my collection, and really, it's probably the first watch that has the amount of textures, I guess, or almost like a gear shape pattern. Most of my stuff's pretty plain, pretty vanilla. I only realized it after I've received this, and I'm really enjoying it. And in the sun, especially, it just absolutely pops.
Yeah.
And it's like made for outdoors. As much as it's sportier now, I would say, from previous iteration. It almost seems a bit more sportier, but it's still got that, dressy elements to it, and it just works so well.
Yeah, it is a little bit sportier. We made a few changes to the shape of the crown guards. So the crown guards have a uniform shape top and bottom side, so they're a mirror image. Previously, there was a sort of like an overhang of the crown guard on the underside, and it came up and under.
Mm,
But we've changed that, and now it reflects more the case form on the crown guards for the models like the Gin Clear Mark II, and we also lengthened the lug slightly. It's a very small increase. It's only about a millimeter and a half max, I think, from memory. But what it allows us to do is obviously, yes, it probably gives it a slightly more aggressive feel,
mm,
but it also allows us to have interchangeability between the bracelet. So that bracelet is the same one that has appeared on our recently released Saddleberg Mark II, and so it means that we don't have to continually remake bracelet head links. We can
mm.
use the same one, and we also used a higher grade bracelet for this one. And yes, it's got. Well, I know you wanted to talk about the changes over time, so
Yeah.
I'll kind of avoid going into too much of that. But yes, it is probably a little bit more sporty than the others.
Yeah, no, no, yeah, we'll definitely get into it. That's what we really want to know, and I'm sure listeners want to listen to that as well. But yeah, you're so right about the lug. I mean, the crown guards. I will just mention that while I'm wearing it, the fact that you've got that same shape on the uniform shape on the top and the bottom, it makes it way better on the wrists as well from usual crown guards that sort of stick out a bit. And I don't know how to explain it, but I'm like I'm moving my wrist up and down right now, trying to make it dig in, and it won't just with the
Yeah.
shape of that crown guard. So yeah, that's a really well thought out design consideration that I'm guessing most people won't pick up unless you tell them. So very cool.
Yes,
Cool.
probably not.
All right. Well, let's get straight into it. But actually, before we get into it, of course, I have to tell listeners this episode is sponsored by Second Hour Watch. So, Peter, thank you very much for that, and really appreciate your time coming on and telling us all about this new release, but also everything else that's going on with you in Second Hour. So, let's get into the questions. So it's been just over a year and a bit now since he came on. So, a lot of
Yeah.
things have happened, and I would love to have a bit of a recap. How things have been for Second Hour. What's been happening?
Hectic. Like, yeah, it's the huge movements in terms of capturing audience. So we've had great success now bringing people on board with our releases. So that's been really wonderful. And we're slowing down, and I possibly alluded to it last time, is that we wanted to slow down on the designing, just hardcore. I was hardcore designing all the time and constantly finding new watch designs that I wanted to bring to life, but and then sort of getting very distracted by those, and instead of working hard to, I guess, promote the existing line. So I've kind of pulled back from that now. I'm designing a lot less over the last 8 months, and I'm focusing on our existing lines that have always been popular: the Gene Clear Mark II, the Mandala, the Giant Stride Mark II, which is in development now, and the Saddleberg, and the Memoir is also continues to just to pump really well for us. It's interesting that the Memoir tends to attract a lot more of the casual watch collector. So
Mm,
we find that being in a lot of the watch groups, we see people buying our watches, the standard models, Gin Clear, Mandala, Giant Stride, things like that. We find a lot more casual enthusiasts buying the Memoir because it's so dressy and versatile, and we get a lot of women buying that watch as well, which is great. And so we see that watch appearing less, and yet we're selling really, really well on those.
yeah.
So yeah, for us, there's been some great stuff happening very recently. Is that since kind of August, September last year, we've been working on a retail deal with Mark at Long Island Watch. That's allowed us. I mean, we already had a foothold in the US, and we've got a distributor there, but it's allowed us to increase our audience. And then since he's listed those on his website and published an introduction video, I think it was yesterday that came out.
Yeah.
he's already selling through tons of those watches. So that
Yes.
is fantastic for us. And now we obviously have the very nice to have problem of how do we supply. So we
Mhm.
have to ramp up production, and of course, ramping up production in something as complex as a watch or anything of complexity, I suppose, it takes time. It's not like you can just churn out more widgets overnight. You've got to wait months to get everything refined and tweaked and then committed. But yeah, so it's been a pretty hectic period, and I'm hoping now over the next 6 weeks to kind of step off the pedal just a little bit before I kill myself. Because we're also looking at taking on some new staff to support. We had another child last year in March.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. And he's been obviously he's a delight, but he's also a handful. And Kira, who works normally full time on the business, has been very occupied
Hmm.
with him
Understandable.
naturally. So we're looking now at sort of backfilling that to an extent to Akira's more able to put all hands on deck again.
Sure.
But we do need to expand in general. So that's another thing that's going on at the moment. And if
Yeah.
you're in Melbourne and if you're looking for an opportunity, we may have it.
There you
Or
go. That's
my job.
job ad, job pitch. Fantastic. I'll obviously be leaving all the links and everything below, and yeah, I'll post the job ad on the Instagram page as well. No, very cool. I mean, that's a lot, and to
Mm,
be honest, congratulations. I mean, there's a clear trajectory there. I mean, I think even previous when you came on, you mentioned the trajectory of the company and where it was going, and even though there was some setbacks in the growth period, it almost seems like you've hit that sort of point where now you're just like, okay, it's we're seeing the rewards side of all
mm.
this hard work and continuing, the hard work to
Yes.
keep getting this rewards. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be 6 years old in 4 months,
Yeah.
and so we're an overnight success in 6 years. So, yeah, and look, there's going to be moments where we fall down, and that will continue
Yep.
to happen. But at least we're hitting a kind of a stride now that allows us to sort of continue to capitalize on where we're going and what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's so cool to see, and the whole expansion side of things, in terms of getting people on and stuff is, yeah, I mean, it's some companies have growing problems, they that they've hit
Yeah.
it, and then there's so much they're selling strong and all that, but it's great to
Mm.
see that you, I guess, recognizing, oh, hang on, we might need some help as well.
Well,
And
yeah,
yeah.
you can't grow too fast too soon without expecting that things will start to sort of burst at the seams if you don't
Mm,
properly force yourselves. I know that I won't mention any names, but I know some brands that kind of started out micro and now have moved on and have experienced some teething problems from the customer service perspective
mm,
because they've sold so many watches. So there's so many watches out there on people's wrists, and then things inevitably start to happen
of
from a
course.
warranty perspective because any brand experiences that, but you haven't resourced yourselves internally to be able to cope with that influx. So yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
we'll take it all in our stride and fumble a few things, I'm sure, but we'll carry on.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's it. And I think the most important thing is just being there and being present, to being like, if there is something that pops up, which inevitably does, you've got this little
Mm,
mechanical thing clicking away, and or of course, whatever it is, it's things happen. Doesn't matter how big it's small, or what kind of brand it is, or
mm,
whatever, how much money you put into it. Things happen. So but the fact that, if you're there to respond and support, that's the most important thing. So
that's it.
cool. Fantastic. All right. Well, sounds like an amazing year, and of course, we can go into a bit more about your, I guess, the retail side and the market things in a bit later. But I would love to, of course, firstly say congratulations on this Mark III of the Mandala. I mean,
Yeah.
having in hand, it's beautiful. It's all I get. That's the first thing that comes up to my mind, and it's beautiful. And in the pictures, it's gorgeous, of course, but in hand, it's a very different experience.
Mm,
And I mean that in a very good way. It's just
mm,
the dial, obviously the gear shape in the center of the dial, and then even the outside of the dial. That sort of, I don't know, almost like a bowl-like effect that it
mm,
get. It's hard to translate in pictures. It
mm.
really is.
Yeah, has a nice this chaptering the slopes at a fairly sort of soft incline. So it does give you, it creates what the mandala does is it, with the combination of that chapter ring and the reduced dial space
Mm.
and the positioning of the indices as they, the larger indices eat into the chapter ring and extend out into the dial. I think it reduces the space inside the dial, and it
Yeah.
makes the watch where it makes it feel like it's got a smaller footprint on the wrist than it actually does. I mean, you compare it to the Saddleberg, which is the same size case, but they wear so differently. And I think that means for us that the Mandala has always appealed to a wider audience,
Mm.
and certainly we get a lot more women buying the Mandala than the Saddleberg. I don't know how many women we've had buy the Saddleberg, but I certainly haven't seen too many. So that's been really, really good as well. And we'll continue with the size. I think the
Yeah.
sizing probably won't change. We may one day introduce a smaller size, but we're not
Sure.
going to focus on that
Yeah.
anytime soon, I think.
No, well said. And I thought was very interesting was one thing I didn't know as well, that the fact that you made the lug to lug slightly larger as well, and it's funny that you've made the watch essentially a little bit bigger, but it doesn't wear any bigger than
Mm,
the previous iteration. And yeah, I mean, I guess in my small-ish wrist as well, it fits really well. And of course,
mm.
the case as well, right? The case design in itself with the lugs, and I think was
Yeah,
I
the
told
shape
you.
of the legs conforms to the wrist quite well the way it curves
Exactly.
down.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was one of the first things I told you when you messaged say, so what do you reckon? I was like, yeah, that's one of the things that
Mhm.
pops out to me, of course, after
Mm.
the dial. So great. No, look, I could keep going on about this obviously because it's right in my wrist right now, but I just wanted to know a bit more. I think, as in last time we did touch on the mandala. I think you mentioned that you were in creating some designs for the Mark III or colorways and things like
Mm.
that. And this is, about a year and a half back. So
Yeah,
that listeners, that's how long it takes, by the way. The process is a long process.
yeah,
So that's
probably longer. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And
probably
yeah,
this one.
exactly. So it's a long time. So I think we spoke about the dial, we spoke about stuff, but I really wanted to know what was your design inspiration behind the mandala. I mean, the mandala could mean a few things. From, a quick search around, it's normally a circular geometric design. It's got a lot of Buddhism and sort of Hindu symbolism. But what does it mean for Second Hour and yourself?
Well, it's not really for us. It doesn't really have any reflection of any sort of spiritual elements.
Sure.
For us, it's a name, I think, that because the dial makes you focus on it so much, and the mandala has traditionally been used for a point of focus for both concentration in spiritual practice and in general in sort of daily life. It's that element of it that the dial that draws you in and keeps you sort of locked in there, concentrating and continually looking back on it, which I can see you doing. um, and I think that's it for us. It is a beautiful, complex geometry, the way it expands out from that center point. It radiates outwards, but it draws the eye inwards. And I think that's really it. We obviously have a love of complex geometry,
Mm.
and we don't always implement that in our designs, but when the opportunity arises, of course, we'll step on it.
It's interesting you talk about the geometric designs. I mean, even in the looking back at I mean, the gin clear, for example, or it's not obvious, but there is certain elements in there that you can similarities, but also not. Like I don't know how to explain it
Well,
too
we have a
well.
design language based around the emphasis of the indices at 12, 4, and 8, but we don't always emphasize that to the same degree because it's sometimes just, it can be a little limiting. So we'll do little nods to it. The Saddleberg Mark II doesn't emphasize that in the same way, but if you look in the chapter ring, you'll see that we've highlighted the markers at those points, the markings in the chaptering at those points, so that we don't get too locked into that style, but we are nonetheless giving a nod to it. But the mandala will always have that, as will the gin clear, and we've certainly got some other designs coming that will use that kind of design language as well.
Nice, that's a cool little Easter egg. there with the Saddleberg. I just noticed it just then as well.
Mhm.
The red on the chapter, the minute track.
Mm.
Very nice. Beautiful. There you go. See, the more you look at it, the more things
Yeah,
you pick up. So
that's
fantastic. We did mention that this is a Mark III, so it came from Mark II, and there has been multiple things that you've improved on, you've changed. We
right.
spoke about the crown guard, spoke about the dial, the improvements. Can you go into a bit more of these improvements for our audience, and I guess also your reasoning behind these
Mhm.
particular changes?
Yeah, the major improvement from the Mark One to the Mark Two was the collapsing of the the stacked the sort of, what do we call it, the cantilevered indices at 12, 4, and 8, and we converted those into a single index unit. That was the reasoning for that was actually quality. It was extremely difficult to qualify dials made with the two to the two part index, because many of them were coming through and they weren't perfectly aligned with each other. So we had to remake a large number of dials in the first production run for the Mark One, and so then for the Mark Two and all subsequent models, we've converted those into a single index. As much as we liked the cantilevered design, until we can find a stable way to produce those so that they're fully aligned in every unit, it may mean making a single piece somehow, but we'll see. And so from the Mark Two to the Mark Three, there was probably the largest number of changes, although some of them are quite subtle. The index pair, the index set, the index large indices at 12, 4, and 8. We've just rounded the back end of them, and so it's very subtle, but they have the same curve on the back end, the outer edge of it, that as the dial itself. And if you look at the previous versions, you see that's just a straight line, a
Hmm.
straight edge, but they curve now. And of course, as I mentioned, we did the crown guards. We put the new bracelet on, and we've actually stepped up the quality of the bracelet quite significantly. It's not just that the bracelet feels more robust; it has full polished links. So the Mark One and Mark Two, we had, it was all fully brushed on the underside, so on the inside of the link. But
Mhm.
we've actually completely brushed all those polished all of those center links, so they're polished on the full link, so top and bottom. Most brands will cut corners and not do that. We're just excited about the fact that our bracelet maker can and will do these kinds of things for us. We know that probably 99% of people won't notice that, but
Sure.
we just love it, and we know that it's something you don't see on a brand at this price point.
Hmm.
The other thing we've done is we found a new supplier for our rotor. So the
Okay.
custom rotor has been fully remade. So it's not even, many times they'll take the original rotor and they'll take that off and they'll just engrave it. We've actually got a brand new rotor made for it. So it's not even the same shape. It's got a slightly different shape on it that's more akin to the rotor shape on like a Solita or something like that.
Sure.
But yeah, we've updated that, and it's got a black. It's got a black highlight in the center of the star, and we obviously have added the push button micro adjustment clasp, which makes obviously the watch so much more wearable. We had a clasp on with four micro adjustments, but that was obviously, you need to adjust them manually with a pin, and now of course it's changed the game. And I mean, look, it's not like we're the first micro brand to do that, and we started it on the Gin Clear Mark II, on our watches on the Gin Clear Mark II in 2023, and of course all the micros are doing it now pretty much. But the engineering on that class, the way it clicks when you click it in for the micro adjustment function, the crispness of the engineering there. So it's been done by a really good team,
Yeah.
and we're really proud of that. So those are the major changes. Oh, actually, another big change from the Mark II to the Mark III is that we've increased the surface hardening. So the previous versions had only 800 Vickers, but our new supplier for that, who does also the surface hardening for the Saddleberg and the Gin Clear, has allowed us to increase the level of hardening.
Hmm.
It's not impervious to scratches, but it's going to look fresher for longer. So
Yeah.
that's That's really good.
That's
Yeah.
important. Yeah, I mean, look, I'll come back on some of those points. I've let you catch your breath a bit with all these changes, but the first thing, I mean, going back to the bracelet, from my opinion, or I guess from my point, I'm not usually the type to go for bracelets. This style of bracelet, I generally, due to my size of my wrists, I generally like to wear bracelets that are tapering, that are probably more like the oyster or dribbly. It's sort of, I guess, in between a 5 link bracelet. But what has really surprised me is how comfortable it is on the
Mm,
wrist.
mm,
I don't miss having a dramatic taper in a bracelet at all with this bracelet just because
mm.
it's so comfortable. And of course, the micro adjust definitely helps as well. Yeah, and it just sort of just drapes directly off the case and just sits so nicely on the wrist. And honestly, that was one of the biggest surprises when I chucked it on because initially I thought, oh, I don't know about this, I'm not sure. I haven't really tried much of these kind of bracelets on, but
Mm.
it definitely wears really comfortably on the wrist.
Yeah, it does. It sits very well. It's the only, yeah, the only one we'll use for our kind of sport and field lines now, I
Yeah.
think. And of course, we'll use the other one for the Gin Clear Mark II and the in development Gin Clear Mark III.
Ah, okay.
Yes. Oh,
I mean, I'm not really surprised that there is all this other stuff in development, like you mentioned previously as well. So no, that's some big sort of improvements and changes there, and having this firsthand, I can definitely vouch for all those. And yeah, you got to check it out in person. So all right, well, look, of course we can't really look past the colors. There has been some, I've got this mint on my wrist, which is stunning, which is something which I never would have imagined that would go well, but for me, and it does. And I must say, the nod to the grey on the minute track, of course,
yeah.
we spoke about grey.
Can't have too much mint.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. I like that. A little bit of muted, yeah, mute the mint a little bit, but fantastic. And obviously it complements the dial pattern really well as well. I think the mint, also the bumblebee, which is the yellow and black as well. I feel like
Yeah,
really
yeah,
complements
that's
it
fun.
well.
That one.
So, and what I also liked in this release is that you've also added some more muted options, like the black and the blue, which I
Yeah.
think, like we mentioned before, I think a lot of listeners would appreciate. The colors are great, they're stunning, but sometimes it's just nice to go back to the basics, simple, everyday kind of things, a bit more under the radar. But how did you land on all these colors?
Well, we knew we wanted to bring back the silver blue and the salmon because they have consistently been big sellers, and in fact, the emails that we've received since we sold out of the Mark II and the Mandala Burst line predominantly have been around, oh, when can we get a Mandala again? I really want the salmon, or I really want the silver blue. And there have been a few questions about other dial colors, but those have been the ones that have sold. So we had to bring those back. And then I knew I wanted to have something a little bit more conservative. So the black for me, the all black is, well, that's the power coming back on. Cool. So the all black for me was, I quite like that one. In fact, it's definitely one of the picks of the bunch of the new lineup for me because I tend to go more with conservative colours too. And so the black with that pop of yellow on the second's hand just really does it for me. And I know that some people will say, well, the mandala is all about that guilloche dial, and because it's so matte black, you don't get to see it as often. But I would say that in most lights, it actually does show up quite
Mm,
well. In a dark room, yes, you're not going to be able to appreciate that as well. But certainly, inside a well lit house and outside it does fine. And yeah, the mint and the bumblebee, we'd actually teased the bumblebee quite a long time ago when we were doing the burst line, which is sort of like a series of little limited edition mandalas, and never really got around to making because I wasn't convinced. I think I wasn't convinced it was, and now it's just going gangbusters. So
nice.
that and the mint are doing very very well. So yeah, just some fun little colours to keep it interesting, and the bullseye red, I created that because the Bullseye Red from the Giant Stride line was so popular, and it will be coming back for the Giant Stride Mark II. So I really wanted to give people a little bit of an ongoing taste of that color scheme before the Mark II Giant Stride emerges again. So, and that's also doing very well. So we're pretty happy
Great.
about it.
Nice. Yeah, those are a good mix of colors. I do like the bullseye
Seven's
red
probably
as
too
well.
many, right? So we'll probably have to pare it back at some point and just make it six, because I think it's the most colors we ever launched with. I think we've done six a couple of times. So
Yeah, it's good to have the options though, but I get what
mm,
you're saying. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's great. I think it's great for the customers.
mm,
They can go ahead and whether they want to have the more standout dials like the mint or the bumblebee or a bit more muted like the black. Yeah, I think it's good to have something like that. I see a lot of these adventuring dials, for example, gives me a little bit of that, which is in the right light, it's sparkly and it's showing. It's very check this out my wrist, but the rest of the time it's muted and it's only for yourself as a
mm.
wearer going, yeah. And then I feel like that's, the black is like a sleeper, definitely.
Yeah, it
Yep.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. We spoke about colors now. Fantastic. And I wanted to, I guess my question to you is this is at the third iteration of the mandala, and I'm sure you're already thinking, what can I do next? But what would you personally want to change or improve or potentially experiment with the next iteration of the mandala?
Yeah, just ice, totally iced out.
Yeah.
Just diamonds all over, and all over. Yeah, I don't know. I think there will be. We'll continue to look at minor refinements if we are well for when we eventually do a Mark IV. But we actually have some very very special dials that we've created as a limited edition for the mandala, and I don't know
Okay.
when we'll bring that. So they'll use exactly the same case form and bracelet and everything and hands and everything, but there's some nice little dials that we've designed that I think should do very well. They're not necessarily mandala like a guilloche mandala pattern,
Okay.
but they're something a little bit new, and I think they'll be very exciting. But so we're looking really ahead to continuing to get those mandalas that we've already made out, and then really look to getting these special edition dials that we've designed. The Mark III, I don't know. I've always thought how wonderful it would be to pop in to do a version that has a Solita SW300 in it, because
Nice.
they're nice and slim, like the Miyota 9015, and they're just such an incredible movement. So there may be some plans on the horizon to do it to a small batch of those, assuming we can utilize the existing case without having to make a new case form. It'll
Sure.
just be whether we can mount that movement in the case. We'll need to make new hands and things, but we'll see.
Yeah, awesome. That's very exciting. And so I guess it's like a burst, another limited edition burst, but something different to
Yes,
those
but they won't be
limitations.
called burst. We've got a name in mind, but
Okay.
we had a name named, and then another brand, a very well-known micro brand, brought out a watch with that same name, but
Oh,
it was an entire line for them. So we had to scrap that.
okay.
Now we've had to go back to the drawing board to rename them. So
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I mean, I'm not sure if that's a clue for the listeners that you can figure out what the name's going to be or what the name was
oh, if you
going to
can work
be.
that one out, I'll give you a free watch.
Fantastic. All right, cool. I guess that all the questions that I wanted to ask that was focused mainly on the mandala, but let's I wanted to have a chat about the side of things. So I guess we spoke a lot about the design side of things, but I want to talk more about the manufacturing side of things. I think the last conversations we had, we will talk through some of the manufacturing difficulties, and from what you've said so far today, is that you've landed on some really, I guess, really great manufacturing partners who's helping to bring your vision to life with the dials and the other bits as well. So how's it evolved in the last year and a half since we spoke, How do you think the
Mhm.
manufacturing scene's going and how's it changing? And, especially like for you guys where you have, you know, a lot of eyes on the ground. I think the last time couple of months ago, maybe, or even before then, when we last spoke. You were there, in these
Mm.
factories, going
Well, we're
around these.
going back again in April.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be coming back there in April to visit my main guys, and just it'll be lots of touring around new parts makers. What he does is, my main guy on the ground, he just goes. He's in a constant search for to be introduced to new teams of
Mm,
people. Now he's found, just over the last 12 months, he's found teams who are making for some very, very well known Swiss and those kinds of brands, and as well as some high end micros. So now we're partnering with those, and the case maker that we're now using is just a step up. We had a resupply run for the Gin Clear Mark II cases from the new team, and they're just fantastic. And so yeah, everything from the new Mandala cases, they're all made from our new team as well. So yeah, it's an opportunity for us to go and meet these new people and see what they can do, test their quality, and talk a bit of business, and then
yeah.
hopefully share a glass of wine with them afterwards. But yeah, for us, it's we're in a good place right now, I suppose. With that, we're happy that we now have people who can kind of align with our vision. It's
Mm,
very difficult, especially in the early years when you're not only kind of quite powerless to and quite unknowledgeable,
mm,
and so that knowledge builds slowly and painfully through lots of mistakes and missteps.
sure.
And then, of course, the further you go on, the more established you get, the more seriously these people take you as well. So you now are able to hit upon people who can produce things at twice the speed in half the time.
Mm,
So that has been really good as well. And we help them. We help our primary guys out by sending them the occasional manufacturing client. So we send them new clients as well, and so that obviously leads to us getting improved deals on our end because we've
mm,
brought them business. So that's been really fun as well, just to be able to sort of give back to them because they work very hard for us,
yeah,
and I drive them pretty hard as well. I can be, I'm 95% nice to them, but if I don't get things
yeah,
the way they need to be, obviously, I can bring down that Thor's hammer.
sure.
So I obviously want to give back to them as part of sort of like saying thanks for putting up with me, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fair. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you want a product that you, you're going to be happy with, and the customers are going to be happy with, and get what get what they're paying for. And if
Exactly. Yeah.
there's bits that you're not happy with, fair enough. You go back and you say, yeah, look, we want it to be better, and it's great to see, to be honest, as well. Just when you spoke about bringing in new manufacturers, basically essentially helping out other brands as well and say, hey, look, I've got the hookup. This is a guy that I know that can, do this well or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, to help that micro brand community grow as well, which is always great to see.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fun. It's
Yep.
fun. It's fun to help.
Yes, for sure. All right. Look, that was my question about the manufacturing side of things. Let's talk about future plans. You've already touched a few things about I guess the next iterations, a limited edition dials for the Mandala Gin Clear Mark III as well. Was it? As you mentioned before?
Gin Clear Mark III. Yes, I
Yep.
finished. I finished designs for the Gin Clear Mark III. Now the Gin Clear Mark III, the Mark II was released. I think it was September 2023.
Sure.
So I've been in a redesign phase for kind of 4 months because the lead times on this, by the time we bring it to market, it'll be at the end of this year. So that's 2 years of the Gin Clear Mark II, and then the Mark III will replace it. There won't be too many major changes for that. We are going to update the major indices at 12, 4, and 8 in that we'll go back to more of a similar style to what was on the original Gin Clear, and they will all be the same loom color. The hands are the biggest update. We're going to make the hands bolder, more statement hands, not overpowering. They're still going to be the appropriate proportions,
Mm,
but what we found was that our existing handset for the Gin Clear Mark II wasn't exciting us as much as it should. It wasn't people, I don't think, were recognizing the hands. It's like, oh, they're Gin Clear Mark II style hands, right? But the
Yeah,
Mark
okay.
III, they will be signature hands. People will look at the Mark III and say, those are Gin Clear hands, and that'll be the handset we use from there on. So that'll be good. And yeah, there won't be many changes to the watch itself. The case will be identical. There was a small update to a case run. We did a case run a couple of months ago, three or 4 months ago, and we just made a very minor change to the way that the outer the exterior line of the lug as it flows onto the case. We've refined that so that it would come up in a join, and there'd be a seam, and then it would come around to the crown guard, and there'd be another join and a seam as it came out onto the crown guard. But now that's a continuous flowing line, which
Oh,
I think
okay.
is much more like what you've got in your hand there with the mandala. So
Yeah, okay.
it will reflect that continuous flow, and so that's a change we've actually already implemented, and it's appearing on Gene Clears that we're assembling now.
Hmm.
Other than that, I think we're contemplating changing from the ETA 2824 to another Swiss made movement. That's because scarcity and pricing on the ETA 2824 is just it's making it less viable. And unless we want to jack up the price of the unit overall, which I don't think we will do in any significant way. And there'll be a very minor, modest increase for the Mark III because we are using new manufacturers for the dials and the hands, so that there's a quality increase there.
Hmm.
But all in all, the price won't change much. But yeah, so it'll be a fairly incremental change for the Mark III. The biggest change being, as I said, the hands. There'll be much more a statement that we're introducing a new color. We'll be
Okay.
retiring the orange.
Okay.
The orange, the ocean sunset it's a fun color, but we found that the audience, despite initially strong response, the ongoing sales of that weren't as strong. So that's a little bit of insight into the sales side of things.
Hmm.
The strongest performers have always been black, white, and blue, pale blue. But we're introducing one or two new colors and see how those go with customers.
Hmm.
And yes, we're doing the Giant Stride Mark II, so that's been designed for quite a while, but we're starting the prototypes right now. So there'll be like 3 or 4 months to get those done, and then we can hopefully start production. And we probably won't be shipping them this year, but we should be able to reveal the prototypes towards the end of the year and have them in people's hands early next year. And
Cool.
then there's a couple of fun little projects. I won't go into those too much, but I have been designing, I'm still doing design work, a series of watches dedicated to each of my children. So my eldest child, her name is Ada, and I'm making a watch called the Ada right now. And
Beautiful.
it'll have a Solita hand wound movement. It'll be an elaborate. We'll do a custom bridge on it, and the dial will be quite special. And then there'll be one for my son, my middle child, and then there'll be one much later on when we've got the money for my youngest, who's 11 months. And so yeah, that's kind of it. But we've got we've got tons of stuff there in the works, but
Yeah.
it's just a matter of no micro brand. Well, I would say the overwhelming majority aren't swimming in cash, so they can't just start projects all over the place,
Yeah.
and not without completely upsetting their cash flow position.
Yeah.
But we really want to make these Gin Clear Mark IIs as quickly as possible because people love that watch, and we can't make enough of them. To be honest, they sell out so fast. So we want to improve supply on that front. So we'll make a ton of them.
Nice. Yeah. Very
And the
good.
Giant Stride Mark II will be obviously a huge step up in terms of quality of the case and bracelet and clasp and dials from the Mark One. But we are probably going to, in order to make it slimmer, we are probably going to switch to, it was a Solita SW200, we'll probably switch to a Miyota 9015, unless, of course, we can find a nice, slim Swiss movement. I know the LG Le Juperet
Hmm.
movement is slim, but it's also a beast on the pricing. So it's not a cheap one to use. But we could potentially, have that as an option because I believe it's, it should be similar in proportion to the 9015. But anyway, that's all speculation at this point. The current plan is to keep it as to
Sh-
convert it to a Miata
Sure,
9015.
sure.
Yep,
Yeah,
and
no,
that's
and
enough.
that's it. Is that it, Peter? Oh, no, wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's right.
It's good to
Oh,
see the plan and the vision and all these things
yeah,
already in there. And obviously, no doubt there, and super special about your children as well, and having those watches named after them and stuff. I'm really looking forward to seeing those as well, amongst other things. But it's cool to see, and yeah, it's nice to have you guys being a family-owned business. To have that connection is
yeah.
really cool.
Well, my daughter, who's 11, has been nagging to start work for us. All right. Well, I have to be careful about that because I'm pretty sure labour laws,
Yeah.
being what they are, prohibit me from to work properly. But she wants to do something, so we might get her, and making up.
Yeah.
So yes, we'll find something appropriate for someone her age, but we can't technically hire her yet. And yeah, so we're obviously pretty happy because this week we finalised our deal, and it was officially announced by Long Island Watch. So we are now stocked on their website, and Mark did a wonderful introduction video, which was just absolutely thrilled about. Really, well, look, he's always he's very well regarded because of his honesty,
Yep.
and he wouldn't back or stock a watch that he didn't think was worth it, or you know that he liked and liked the look of and wanted to wear. And it does sound like, from what I gather, he gets a lot of micro brands approaching him looking for that kind of relationship. And I was really, I guess, blown away when he said yes, we'd love to work with you. So I'm praying that bears fruit long term. Obviously, it's already doing very well. He's reported back strong sales already in just over 24 hours. So
Wow.
that's fantastic. So obviously, there's a bit of pent up demand from people who are looking for someone in the US that they knew they could trust
Yep.
and would talk about the watches in an honest way. So that's fantastic. We just need to make sure we take care of him like we do all our retail partners with supply. So with that, we obviously have to ramp up supply now to be able to
Match the
continue
demand. Yeah.
getting watches in people's hands.
Very nice. Cool. That's great. So, right, Long Island Watch is a huge, huge, opens up that market. I mean, you already mentioned you had a bit of a foothold there already, but now it just makes it bigger. But is there anything else you can share with us in terms of, I guess, distribution partners, retail space? I mean, other
Uh,
places around the world. You don't have to.
we've got a
If
retail space that we're working on in Melbourne with.
Yep.
He's been putting together a retail space there called.
Yep.
I don't know that there's been any official announcement, so I hope I haven't stepped on.
If it's not to be officially announced, I will just bleep it out, so it's okay. I'll
Yeah.
bleep out the details, but yes, in Melbourne, a space in Melbourne. So
Yes, so it'll be a number of brands, independents and micros, in a shared space. So it's a good first step because we do have as one of our key facets of our business plan is secure a retail foothold in Melbourne,
yeah,
because we have so many people contacting us asking where can we come and try on your watches, and where are you? I'm in Melbourne as well. Obviously, that's been a challenge up until now. So we're looking forward to that sort of opening up a whole new world for us. It'll be
yeah,
very exciting. And of course, we've got Wristwatch Check coming up in March. That's Wristwatch Check 2, which will be bigger and better in basically every possible regard. And that's going to be absolutely fantastic. There's lots and lots of more brands coming this year, and it's a really big event in terms of the amount of things they've got going on there, from photography and design workshops, as well as like looking at the cars and the watches, and getting to interface directly with brand owners and try on their watches and talk about watches, and yeah, and also have a couple of cheeky cocktails as well while you're there.
yeah. That definitely won't hurt. Yeah, I was yeah. So I had a message saying, "Hey, do you think you can make it this year?" And I would love to, but unfortunately not this year. But one day
No?
I'll make it to one of these events in over east. Yeah, for those of the listeners who are listening outside of Australia, you would, we're both in Australia, but it's very far away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. WA is a long way from here.
Yeah, exactly. So no, unfortunately, with commitments and my day job stuff, of course, no, not really this year. But hey, I would love to be able to join one day as well. So cool, fantastic. It's good to see. And yeah, I actually got a message from a local collector here when I did put the photo up of the mandala, an absolute gentleman, and he said, "Oh, yeah, I'm in Melbourne soon, and I would love to go and see their watches." We would like go see. So there you go. Right there.
Yes,
Mm.
we've had two people just in the last 48 hours ask that very question. So
Yep. Come to wristwatch check, firstly,
come to
and then
wristwatch check, and also come and check us out when. Anyway, I need
yeah,
some sleep.
yeah, that's all good. That's great. Fantastic. All right. Well, look, I, I think it really comes to the end of our questions today. We've had a great chat, of course, about the mandala, but about every other aspect as well of second hour as well. So really appreciate your time to come on, share with our listeners, and about the mandala and everything else as well. It's always a pleasure to speak to Peter, and hopefully it's not the last time you're on as well. So you're always welcome to come back on.
Yes, well, thank you, Praka, and it's absolutely a pleasure. And
Fan-
I look forward to any future opportunities to talk with you and your audience.
Fantastic. All right. Well, always like to wrap up with the something interesting section. Now, I'm not sure if might be throwing you under the bus here if you haven't had a look at it,
Sure.
but yeah, if there's anything that you'd like to share to our audience that you've read, you've seen, you heard, watch
Yep.
related or otherwise, I would love to hear about it.
Yes. Knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is knowing not to put it in your fruit salad.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's the
Hmm.
best you get from me. But I have fun with my daughter, and we try to make up other things that knowledge and wisdom are, and using the same principle.
Nice. Okay, cool. That's awesome. That tops anything that I was going to talk about. But
Yeah. Doesn't say much for what you're going to talk about because that was
no, it was just I actually I will mention. So I've recently been going to a local library, trying to use it more. I think I feel like libraries in general are very
old
under.
school.
Yeah, old school, but also very underappreciated. They're
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
spaces for everyone, kids, families, you name it. Just go and even you don't have to. You can just go and relax there and look at things. And everyone's so helpful. Librarians are very helpful people. So anyway, that's my pitch for the library. But no, that's not why I brought it up. But kids have been, they were borrowing their books and whatever they want to book. And as usual, I want to go and check out something watch related. So I did.
Yeah.
You can barely see it because of the blur. I apologize. But I don't, can you see that? Sort of keeps coming up. No, no. Anyway, it is the. So yeah. Anyway, there was a couple of watch related stuff, and I just thought I'd pick up this book. It's called The Watch Thoroughly Revised, and it is a very Swiss centric, big brand centric book
Naturally. Yep.
naturally. But I thought it was really cool because this is, I guess, the revised version. So it came out a couple of maybe about 2, 3 years ago now, and they do mention a couple of smaller brands in there as well. I guess you could say independent-ish, and
Mhm.
it's just cool to see. And I would love to see how it evolves. All these big publications and houses, and eventually recognizing the fact that, hey, watches doesn't just stop at the big Swiss houses. There's much more than that,
Mm.
especially with the microbrand movement.
Well, in micro brands, you've got companies who are willing to take risks and who
Exactly.
are literally putting, very often, the shirt off their back into what they do. Whereas the Swiss houses tend to play it much more conservatively.
Yep.
Of course, I think that once you're on a good thing, you tend to not you tend to be a bit more risk averse. I think,
Yeah. Yeah. Even the big
especially
Japanese
for
houses,
shareholders.
same thing. Yes, exactly. Yeah, even the big Japanese houses, same thing. Slow moving and iteration is very slow. But yeah, you're definitely right. But anyway, I thought it was a great book.
Well,
Something. Yeah.
I've seen lots and lots of the larger and larger independent brands start to employ to take options on their watches and that they hadn't traditionally done, and it seems to be a response to the emergence of micro brands as a obviously it's not a major market share, but it's obviously attracting a lot of interest in that particular price bracket. And so I think that they have seen it and they are taking steps to try and avoid losing
Market share that way.
market share. And why wouldn't they, considering that we see the sales of Swiss watches and luxury watches taking a nosedive. Of course, I'm sure they'll be fine, but it is a changing world. So
Yeah. No,
it's
it's good.
interesting to see where it goes.
Definitely. And I think in a bit of, I don't know, a bit of competition as well, I guess. I mean, not that it's two different sort of coins, but they decided, hey, actually we should innovate more, or we should try and take a bit of risk. It just ends up pushing everyone else to try different things, and so it's good to
Yeah,
see. Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Cool. All right. So
All right.
that's pretty much it. Come to the end of the podcast episode. So yeah, look, before we wrap up, listeners, please, check out the link. I'm gonna drop all the links to Second Hour website, the link to the Mandala MK3, which is on pre-order till the end of this month, and the watch is being shipped out the first week of March. Correct me if I'm wrong, Peter?
Yeah, we're taking a little break from the 21st of March. So we're looking to have everything that's currently outstanding from like a pre-order perspective out the door before we disappear. So we're going to be pretty exhausted by that point, but it's got to be done because we don't want people waiting till April for something that they've been expecting to be shipped in March.
Sure. Great. No worries. We'll make sure that check it out. And yes, of course, if you do want to place an order, the links are all there, and yeah, check it out. And is there anything else, Peter, that you'd like to add or plug to the end?
No, I just appreciate everyone tuning in and taking the time to listen. And for anyone who does check us out or has any questions, please feel free to drop us a line. There's a web form on the website and we'll get right onto it.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much, Peter, again
Thank
for coming on, sponsoring this episode. Much appreciated. And if there's nothing else, we'll leave it right there.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, Praka.
Thank you for listening to Overtime the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. You can find us on our Instagram at Overtime the podcast, at Kinda Average Watches, or flick me an email on overtimethepod@gmail.com. I appreciate your support and value your feedback. If you have any questions, suggestions, or topics that you would like the podcast to cover in the future, please hit us up. Until next time.